Am I audible to you all? Okay, fine. So, in our last lecture, we had already gone through the two different models, that is OSI reference model as well as TCP/IP reference model, and we had discussed what are the functions of each of the layers of both these models. Fine, and we'll continue further with the comparison of these two models. Fine. Is my screen visible to you all? Okay. So next, since we have come to know about these OSI as well as TCP/IP reference model, the next thing is we'll compare these two models, right? So the OSI model, as we have discussed, it was first the model was developed, and they tried to generate or tried to design the protocols based on these models. Based on each layers, they tried to fit the protocols for these layers. Now here the OSI model is built based upon the services, the interfaces and the protocols for each of the layer of its model. Right? The OSI, each layer would provide a particular service while we are performing the networking operation, but it just defines the service, but how the services would be implemented, that is not described, or that is not told by this OSI model. Okay, just they have defined that this particular service should be provided by this particular layer, but they haven't defined how these services should be implemented. Fine. Whereas the next concept on the basis of which this OSI model was built was the interfaces. That means from one layer to the other layer, how the interfacing would be carried out, and it specifies what the parameters uh, has to be passed to the layers above any layer. Say suppose layer n is there, and it has to pass what parameters has to be passed from layer n to layer n plus 1. Okay, so that is defined by these interfaces, as well as what result from the layer n plus 1 should be provided to layer n. That is also defined in this interfaces part of this OSI model. The third concept is the protocols. Okay, in this case, the peer protocol. What do you mean by peer protocol or peer layer? What do you mean by the peer layer? The layer which is at at same level is known as the peer layer. Okay, the transport layer of host A, the peer of that is the transport layer of host B. Are you getting my point? Okay, so the peer protocols which are used in each layer, they so it is not that the protocol which is used by host A at the transport layer may not be same as that of the protocol which is used by host B uh, on the transport layer. Okay, they might be different. They don't say that what protocol should be used. That usually what we want is the protocols which are used at the peer layer should be same. Fine, but here unless means until the work is performed, and unless the job is done, they don't bother about the protocols which are used by host A as well as the protocols which are used by host B. Fine. So these are the concepts which are central to the OSI model. The other difference is that, as we have discussed, the OSI model, the model was just first built, and then the protocols were built, or the each function of each layers were built or were provided, and the protocols has to be developed for those layers. Whereas in case of TCP/IP reference model, first they have built the protocols, and they tried to, the model was built later and they tried to fit these layers based on the protocols. Are you getting the difference? Hello. In case of OSI model, first the model was built and then they had to define the protocols for each of the layers. Whereas in case of TCP/IP reference model, first the protocols were built. For example, at the transport layer, they had TCP or UDP protocol. At the network layer, they have IP protocols, etc. So, in case of TCP/IP layer or TCP/IP reference model, first they built the protocols and then the model was just built so as to fit all these protocols on each layer of this TCP/IP reference model. Is it clear? So, fine. Okay. And the other difference between the TCP/IP as well as the OSI reference model is, in case of OSI reference model, what we have learned is the network layer of the OSI model, it provides both the connectionless as well as the connection oriented service. Okay. We have already discussed what do you mean by connectionless and connection oriented. Right. Whereas in the case of TCP/IP reference model, it was the network layer. It would only provide the connectionless service. The packets were switched and the packets were routed independently. No prior connection was established between source and destination. Whereas in the OSI model, at the transport layer, we had only a single type of only a connection oriented service. Whereas in case of TCP/IP reference model, at the transport layer, it provides both the connectionless as well as the connection oriented service. That is and the example of connection oriented is the TCP, that is transmission control protocol, whereas UDP is the uh, user datagram protocol. So at the TCP/IP model, at the transport layer, it provides both the connection oriented as well as the connectionless service. Whereas in the OSI model, it would only provide the connection oriented service. So these are the various differences between the TCP/IP reference model as well as the OSI reference model. And one more difference is that since the OSI model, the model was developed first, so they were not having much idea about what problems they may face when some new protocols has to be added. Okay, so for example, or when some new challenges comes, how to face it, they were not known. For example, say suppose if they want to perform a broadcast service, okay, that means the data has to be broadcasted to number of users. In that case, there was no such province in the given OSI model. Okay, so what they did is they added one sublayer into the data link layer, which is also known as a MAC sublayer. Right. So before that, they were considering the data transmission only from for point to point, but they haven't thought about the broadcast type of service. Whereas, so that's why they added a new sublayer into the data link layer, which would help to perform the broadcast operation. Fine. So apart from these differences between the OSI as well as the TCP/IP reference model, the TCP/IP reference model, what happens since it is built after the protocols were developed. So we have already studied that there are four layers in this TCP/IP reference model, and at each layer, certain protocols are fitted. Fine. Now, in case if if we want to have some other protocols, then it cannot be easily fitted into the given TCP/IP reference model. Are you getting my point? In the TCP/IP reference model, first the protocols were developed. Based upon that, the model was generated. So now when the protocols, if they want to change or if we want to add some other protocols, then it may not fit into the into the reference model stack which was developed. Fine. Whereas in case of OSI reference model, since the protocols are not developed before this model, so we can change the protocols because it is not known, isn't it? What protocol should be used at what layer? It is not defined. Anything, nothing is defined. So here it is easily we can perform the changes in the protocol in the OSI reference model, but it is very difficult to change or it is very difficult to inculcate the new protocols and or to get a new protocol stack uh, for this for this corresponding TCP/IP reference model. Fine. So this is about the comparison of the OSI as well as the TCP/IP reference model. Any doubts in this? Hello. Any doubts regarding this? Okay. So if you have any doubt, you uh, put it in this chat box so that I'll come to know where you are facing the problem. Fine. So the next we'll see about the critics of this OSI model and OSI protocol. What do you mean by critics? It is just the analysis of the model. Okay. So we'll see the critics of this model. The first one is bad timing. So what do you mean by bad timing? So whenever a new subject or any new topic has to be introduced or any new concept has to be introduced in the market, okay, or when it comes to the market, before that it has to be researched. Are you getting this? So, some new subject, because earlier they were not knowing about anything about computer networks. Once some idea came about the networking, they might have started the research. So you can see that some of the years may go for the researching of to perform the research work. And once the research work is done, then some standards has to be established. Okay, so whenever we want to commercialize anything, so, why do we require the standards? So that it should be compatible with the other systems, isn't it? If the standards are not maintained, then what happens? Everyone would uh, uh, build the product in their own way, and they may not be compatible with each other. Right? So yes, all in short, it should the product should be compatible with each other. That is the aim to provide the standards. So usually, what happens? The research work would be going on, and after that, some standards would be proposed. Usually, the IEEE standards would be there. That okay. Then based upon the standards, the investment will be done by the manufacturers and they'll start manufacturing the products based on the standards and based on the research work what they have employed. But now, in case of the OSI model, what happens in before if suppose the standards have developed before this research work is fully done, then what happens? They may find that the result of the research work may not means the standards may not obey this research work. Okay, or if say suppose if it waits for the research work to finish and then after a long time if it starts placing their standards, then what happens? Before the standards have been established or before they have been declared, the investment has already been done by the investors, and everyone is trying to all of them would prepare their own thing by their own standards. Okay, so this the timing was not proper for this OSI model. So before the standards have been developed, okay, actually the standards were developed more earlier than that of the given research, and the standards might have been failed. Follow? So here, actually this timing is too short, and the OSI model has crushed. It has been crushed between the research as well as this $1 billion investment. So this is also known as the apocalypse of the two elephants. The two elephants are these research work as well as the investment, and the standards were crushed for this OSI protocol. Now, the next thing is bad technology. Fine. So here also what happens, since the standards were still not mentioned, and already the research based on this research work, many universities and many researchers, they have already started implementing this TCP/IP reference model. And what they have found that it is more it has come to the market, and they have, many of them have started implementing, and hence the OSI model failed. Fine. So the next one is bad technology. So the model as well as the protocol of the OSI was flawed. That means what? The function at each layer, the complexity of the function at each layer was they were not uniform. For example, the function for the session layer and presentation layer, it was too small, or it was too short, whereas the function at the network layer as well as the data link layer, it was too huge. Okay, so the proportion of work which was provided to each of the layers was not proportion. It was not proportionately, and hence it failed. The other thing is that the since a lot of layers are there, and lot of things has to be implemented, it was difficult to provide the standards for each of these layers. Okay, and the standards, the implementation, what it does, so bad implementation. So the implementation was too slow, and they were not up to the standards which was provided by this OSI reference model. Okay, since the implementation was too slow, and uh, till then, already in the market, they have the researchers have, the academics in the academics already, they have started to build the TCP/IP reference model, and within the Unix operating system, they have inbuilt this TCP/IP model. So what happens, since it was inbuilt uh, with the operating system, it was widely used throughout the market, and this even if they were urging to introduce this OSI model in the market, but since it was very wide, it has already been flourished. It was not. They haven't. This OSI reference model was not into the market. Okay, so this is a bad politics. So the European government as well as the USA, they were insisting to uh, uh, for this OSI reference model. But since already most of them are where you started using the TCP/IP reference model, the OSI reference model was not used. Okay, but most of the things, since but whenever we were studying the networking, we usually try to learn the things using the OSI reference model than that of the TCP/IP reference model. Okay, because theoretically it sounds more good, as well as to study each layer, it would be more easier in the OSI reference model than that of the TCP/IP reference model. Okay, so these are the some of the critics: bad timing, bad technology, bad implementation, and bad politics of this OSI reference model. Similarly, some critics of the TCP/IP reference model is uh, service interface and protocols are not distinguished. As I said, the OSI reference model was based upon this service interface and protocols, whereas the TCP/IP reference model was not based on service interface and protocols. whereas the OSI reference model is general. Since this TCP/IP reference model was built after the protocols were developed, that TCP/IP model was only fitted with those protocols. So if a new protocol has to be added, it may not fit into the existing reference model. Then the host to network layer, uh, it is not really a layer. So we have discussed this. So already whenever we are using this networking, we have the network interface card, and it is an interface, and the packets would be traveling through this network interface card, which would take care about the operations of the data link layer as well as the physical layer of the OSI model, what we have discussed. And hence there is no host to network layer in the TCP/IP reference model. It is just an interface. There is no mention of data link layer and the physical layer. Minor protocols deeply entrenched, hard to replace. So that's what we have discussed. Even if there is any change in the protocol, or if new protocols has to be added, then it is hard to replace. So it cannot be replaced with any other. Okay. So for studying purpose, we will be using this hybrid model: physical layer, data link layer, network layer, then transport layer, and the application layer. Follow? So this is just the introduction as well as the function of each of the layers of both these reference models, what we have discussed. So now we'll start with the second chapter, and that is the lowest layer, that is the physical layer. Okay. So what is the function of the physical layer? We have discussed. What is the function of the physical layer? Hello. What does the physical layer do? Transfer data through the media. Yes, the raw bits would be transferred. So it has to decide how to represent zeros and ones, whether the data transmission is in single direction or both the direction. What are the number of pins which has to be connected to the connector, etc. All these are the various functions of the physical layer that we'll see each one of them, because we are having different types of media to transfer the data. So we'll see which are the different types and how it can be used. The In general, the transmission media is grouped into guided as well as unguided media. Okay. So guided media means what? The one which is having a physical path. For example, a wire cable is there, so that is an example of a guided media. Whereas unguided media means what? The one in which the physical path is not provided. For example, if I want to perform a radio transmission or the satellite communication, where you don't have a physical wire to connect between source and destination. So that is an example of an unguided transmission media. Is it clear? Guided means what? You are having some wire or cable or something like that for transmission. And unguided means what? The transmission media would be air. Okay. So you don't have a physical path for that. So that is an example of an unguided transmission media. Fine. So we'll see each one of them. So first we'll start with the guided transmission media. So some of the examples of the guided transmission media is magnetic media, then twisted pair cables, coaxial cables, fiber optic cables, etc. Right? So we'll see each one of them. So a simple one is a magnetic media. So magnetic media means what? You are physically carrying some data from using either the hard disk, or you can use floppy disk or your pen drive, etc. So if I want to transfer my data from my system to your system, so what I'll do, I'll attach a pen drive, I'll copy it into my pen drive, the data, and then I'll put your that pen drive into your machine and copy it back to your machine. So that is one way to transmit the data. Okay, so here it takes it writes the data onto the magnetic media. For example, it can be disk, tape, etc. And what should be the transmission speed? Here this is one example in which never underestimate the bandwidth of a station wagon full of tapes hurtling down the highway. So some wagon is there. You can imagine a truck which is having full of the tapes or full of some, say suppose pen drives, and it is hurtling down the highway. That means it is moving through the highway. So you can imagine now, if it is so, then the number of pen drives which we are having on this tape. So the data transmission, you can see that a lot of data would be transmitted only in a single go. But it is not that pleasing, isn't it? So the other media, which can, and it cannot be passed through the if the distance is too large. Okay, so the other transmission media is a twisted pair cable. So for example, you can have an example of a twisted pair cable, like the electric wire. Okay, you are having two wires which are twisted. Okay, so this is an example of a twisted pair cable through which the data transmission would be carried out. So there are two types of twisted pair cable. Category 3 UTP refers to unshielded twisted pair cable. With this is an example which shows with four twisted pairs. So in this cable you are having four twisted pair. Are you able to see this? So where do you find such cable? Where do you find it? A single, like this cable, you will be able to you can see for transmission of electrical signals. Okay, any other way? MCBs, that's fine. So have you ever come across the RJ45 cable? Yes. Have you come across RJ45? So in that also you may have number of such twisted pair cables. Yes, that is internet cable. That is also the same. It is known as a RJ45. Okay, so like such a number of twisted pair cables are embedded into it, and that can be connected for transmission of data. Fine. So we are having two types again. UTP stands for unshielded twisted pair, and STP stands for shielded twisted pair. So you can see this like this. There are four such different cables which are not shielded. Like this, they are independent. Okay. Whereas for STP, that means within this again, a pair of this would be shielded, and such type of cable is known as a shielded twisted pair cable. So now, why do we twist these cables? Why not directly it can transfer the data? Means, is there any reason to twist these cables? Uh, Speed, no. Let me tell you. So if say now we are twisting these cables. If say suppose these cables, they are made of coppers. So in between we are having some copper wire. Fine. So this copper wire acts as an antenna. You know what is antenna? It radiates the energy. Yes, it cancels. So if we twist it, the radiated energy would cancel each other, and hence the signal would not be lost, and hence these wires would be twisted so that the amount of energy would not be lost by by this radiation, electromagnetic radiation. So that's why these cables are twisted. So you can see that, as I said, we are having two types of twisted pair. Unshielded, category 3 unshielded twisted pair, where the number of twists are less, whereas Category 5, unshielded twisted pair, where the number of twists, or you can say turns, would be more. Fine. So this is about a simple twisted pair cable which can be used for transmission of the data. So next we have the coaxial cables. So hope this is clear. Here, yes. So if you are having more number of turns or more number of twists, then yeah, the data can be transmitted to a longer distance. The quality of the data would be more. Okay. Whereas here it would have less number of twists, the quality would be it would be deteriorated. Fine. So this is about the twisted pair cable. Next comes, and you might be knowing that above this copper wire, there would be some insulated material. So you might have come across this, isn't it? So the next type of transmission which can be carried out is by using the coaxial cable. Okay, so here in this coaxial cable, we have a copper wire which is also known as a core. Okay, this copper wire or the core is surrounded by some insulating material. Fine, and above this insulating material, some wired mesh would be there, which is also known as a braid. Okay, and above that again a protective sheet would be there above this braid or above this wired mesh. Okay, this is the arrangement of a coaxial cable. It is also sometimes they only use the term as coax. Coaxial means what? Within we are having a common access for the core, the braid, the insulating material, etc. Hence it is known as a coaxial cable. So this is one more way, one more media through which the data transmission can be carried out. So by looking at this, can you tell me any application of this kind of cable if you have come across? Yes, very good. TV cable. If the thickness of this is more, okay, of the copper core is more, the more the bandwidth of the data would be more. Fine. Then comes the next type of cable, which is known as a fiber optic cable. Okay, so the fiber optic cable has uh, a core which is made up of glass. Okay, and the refractive index, you might have studied this thing in your school days, the refractive index of the material. So the refractive index of the glass would be more than that of the cladding which is surrounding this core. Okay, and above this there would be a plastic jacket which is covering this core as well as cladding. Are you getting this? A glass would be there, a wire made of glass would be there, and that is known as a core. The refractive index of this core would be more than that of the cladding. Cladding is also built using the glass, and before that a covering would be there. Okay, so similarly you can see that three such cables are there. This is the front view. If you observe this cable from here, so this is the core, this is the cladding, and this is the outer jacket. Right? So like this, three such cables are placed into a common sheet. Fine. Now, the principle of data transmission through this fiber optic cable is it uses the total internal reflection. So you might have studied that. So this is my core. Okay, as I said, it is having more refractive index. Okay, that means it is a denser medium and this is a rarer medium. So when the angle of incidence increases, so refraction. So what happens? The angle of uh, refraction would also increase. Okay. Again, still, if I increase, this would be the angle of refraction would still be increased. And at the critical angle, what happens? At a critical angle, what happens? How would be this? It would be reflected or it would be on the surface at a critical angle. critical angle I'm talking, it would be on the surface, isn't it? So this angle would be increased, and the output of this wave, it would be at the surface of this, because this is, we are moving from yes. And if I still increase the angle of incidence, what happens? If it is greater than the critical angle, the light would be reflected back. So this concept is used for the communication of data through this fiber optic cables. Okay. So now this the fiber optic cables, uh, they may be used for a longer distance of communication, as well as one such example, this fiber optic ring with active repeaters. It might be possible that, say suppose if I'm having this number of computers, like these are the number of computers, and all of them are communicating using this ring, and the media of communication, the wire, the line, what you are able to see, that is built using this fiber optic cable. And here we are having some interface unit, and this is also known as an active repeater. In this case, what happens, the from the computer, whatever the data comes, say suppose this computer is providing certain data, and that data is through the electrical signals. Okay, some electric signals are passed from the computer to this interface. Now this electrical signal, through the copper wire, it is provided to the this you can say the transmitter. Transmitter means what? Either for the transmission of the here this acts as a transducer, which would convert this electrical signal to its corresponding light signal. So how to convert this electrical signal to light signal? How will you connect? How will you convert? So either I can have an LED, you know what, how the LED would work, or the laser diode, anything. Okay. So those acts as a transmitter, and the electrical signal would be converted to its optical signal. LED with what? With that. Okay. So, and the light would be transferred through this optical fiber. Now, whereas at the receiving end, what happens? There would be a photodiode. Photodiode means what? Based upon the amount of energy what it receives, it would be converted to its corresponding electrical signal, and the electrical signal data would be provided to the computer. Now what happens? Say suppose this is transmitting some data to this particular computer. Fine. So at every end, what it will do, it will first convert it into its corresponding electrical signal. Then again electrical to optical signal would be converted. So sometimes when the signal deteriorates, here we can perform the amplification, signal regenerator, or the signal can be amplified, and it will be forwarded further. Okay. So since here we are converting back to the electrical signal, performing the amplification, and again retransmitting back. So this is such type of repeaters are known as the active repeaters, because we are changing or we are amplifying the signal. Whereas in case of passive repeaters, it would not do so. It receives, and without any change, it just transmits. That is nothing but the passive repeater. Are you able to follow this thing? Since we are having active repeaters, what happens even if I am having a very big network, or if the computers are connected very farther apart, then too the data transmission can be carried out easily. Whereas in case of passive repeater, it may not be. Right? One such example of a passive star connection in this using this fiber optic network, we'll see. For this, we'll have a silicon cylinder. Fine. So this is a star type of network. So these are the systems. Here we are having a transmitter as well as the receiver. So here you can see one layer is transmitter, the other layer is receiver. The transmitter can be LED or photodiode, and the LED or laser diode, and the receiver can be the photodiode. So whoever wants to transmit, they'll transmit this to this cylindrical structure. It is which is made of silica, and the data what it receives, what it would do, it would forward it, or it would broadcast it to all the outgoing ends of this. So you can see that what anyone whoever is transmitting, that data would be received by each of them. So this is an example of a passive connector. Here it is not performing any amplification or any manipulation of the data. Just whatever it receives, it would forward it, or it would just broadcast it to all these networks. Fine. So, but the thing is that since the single signal has to be distributed to all these four different outputs, the amount of signal, the strength of the signal would be reduced. Followed. So, if I'm having still more number of computers are connected in this way, then still the amount of energy which it transmits would be deteriorated. Right? Is it clear, everyone? So, how this fiber optic cable is more preferable than that of the copper wire? The comparison of these we can see here. The advantage of using the fiber optic cable than that of the copper wire is that it is having a very high bandwidth. So underlying cables which were used earlier, they use this the telephone network, for example. So it was built by using this copper wire, and the frequency or the bandwidth what it has was 3 to 4 kilohertz. Okay, so in that much bandwidth, only the voice signal can be transmitted. But if we want to transmit some video signals or some pictures, if we want to transmit, then that much bandwidth would not be sufficient. So fiber optic, instead of this copper wire, the fiber optics were laid. Then low attenuation, what do you mean by this? Hello. Attenuation is low. What do you mean by attenuation? Low attenuation means what? As I said, the copper wire would act as an antenna, and as the distance increases, most of the energy of the which is flowing through the wire would be radiated, and as the distance increases, the signals, it would have very less power into in that signal. Okay, so it attenuates, or the signal would be deteriorated. Whereas in case of fiber optic cable, it is not so. It would not have much attenuation. The deterioration of the signal would not be there, even if it is the signal is carrying over a very longer distance. It is not affected by the power surges. Okay, even if there is a power fluctuation, it doesn't have much. It would not affect to this fiber optic cable. Then electromagnetic interference. So some other cable which is passing through that cable, the fiber optic cable, it does not have much effect, because if you remember, in the earlier days, if a telephone cable, or if say suppose uh, this TV cable, if it is passing, then due to the interference, some disturbance would be there in the channel. Okay, so such electromagnetic interference would also be avoided by using this fiber optic cables. Fine, it is not affected by chemicals. They are thin and lightweight. Fine, it avoids expensive and bulky support system. So all these are the and one more most important point is it is difficult to tap. That means what? Since the the copper wire radiates the energy, someone can tap, or someone can use its signal, or someone can make out what the data is. Whereas in case of fiber optic cable, it is very difficult to tap. You cannot tap it, or you cannot pierce some wire in between, some other fiber optic cable in between, and you can receive those messages. But in case of copper wire, what happens? You can connect another, you can make a hole into that and you can connect some other wire and you can get the message, or you can get the signals. Whereas by using this fiber optic cable, we cannot tap it, and hence it provides excellent security. So these are some of the advantages of fiber optic cable. Whereas the disadvantage is that it is delicate and broken easily because it is made up of glass, and interfacing is costly. For example, if we want to connect two fiber optics cables, then it requires a lot of skilled individuals to connect those two cables. Fine. Interfacing is costly and usually it is unidirectional. Fine. So these are some of the disadvantages of using fiber optics over the copper wire. So this was about the guided media. Next, we'll see about the unguided media. Okay, that is the wireless transmission. Fine. So in this unguided media, there are the electromagnetic spectrum what we have. Based upon the different frequencies of this electromagnetic spectrums, the waves behave differently. It is not that the one which is the waves which are in this band of frequencies, the like microwave band of frequencies, the same type of behavior is of the wave is not there in this infrared type of data transmission. Are you getting this? So based upon the different frequencies of among this electromagnetic spectrum, the characteristic of the wave behaves differently. So we'll see how the usual using different ways, different frequencies of the transmission, or the signal, how how the radio waves behave, how the microwaves behaves, etc. So the very first one is the radio transmission. So in the electromagnetic spectrum, in the radio waves, so you might have observed that in the electromagnetic spectrum we are having uh, like infrared waves, the ultrasound waves, x-rays, etc. So among this electromagnetic spectrum, if we are trying to communicate through the frequencies which are meant for the, which you find in the very like VLF, that means very low frequency and mid frequency bands. So if it is then this, these radio waves, they uh, follow the curvature of the ground. So this is the earth surface and you can see that these are the two towers. Fine. So whenever this is, suppose this is the host A and it is broadcasting, or it is delivering some message, and the message would be passed to this another antenna which is connected here, and both of them should be at the line of sight. Line of sight means what? Both of them can would should be able to see each other. Okay, that's why usually the antennas would be very taller, I mean the towers would be very taller, so that there would be line of sight. So the and the and these waves would be would follow the curvature of the earth. So the earth's curvature is like this and the waves would also follow this path. Fine. And these waves are omnidirectional. What do you mean by omnidirectional? The guided transmission, we have seen that if say suppose a wire is laid, the signal would go in the same path through the wire. Whereas in the unguided transmission, if say suppose the this tower is transmitting the signals, it may go in this direction as well as in this direction. In all the directions it may go. Okay. So usually the radio transmission is the omnidirectional transmission. Fine. Then at the low frequencies, the signals would penetrate through the buildings. Okay, so say suppose if some a tall building is there, the signals can penetrate through these tall buildings, provided the frequency of transmission is in this range, very low frequency or low frequency. Whereas if we increase the frequency of transmission, if the signals are the frequency is increased, then the signals would not penetrate through the building, but it will bounce back through the obstacles. Okay, so one such example you can see that if say this is the earth surface, and here we are having one layer of the ionosphere, so we are having various layers, isn't it? Biosphere, atmosphere, etc. So the ionosphere would reflect the wave which is transmitted by this particular tower, and the transmission frequency is high frequency band. So what happens, it would be reflected and it would be received here. Okay, so but the problem with this transmission is that the size of this ionosphere layer, sometimes it would become denser, sometimes it would become rarer, or even this the width might be increased or decreased based upon the season, based upon the during the day, etc. Okay, so if it is so, the angle of reflection would also be changing, right? So this is about the high frequency band. The signals would be just reflected, it would not be transmitted. Then comes the microwave transmission. Okay, so in at the microwave frequencies or the electromagnetic waves above this 100 megahertz, so above this high frequency we have this microwave frequency. Here it travels, the signals would be traveled in a straight line. Okay, and the signals over them can be sent by beaming those waves towards one particular station. So what happens, if say suppose I am having two towers here, and the signals would be just transmitted in a straight line. Okay, and hence we can have a beam of signal which is passing from one tower to the other tower. Okay, so since it is in the straight line, both the sender as well as the receiver should be in the line of sight. That means both of them can see, should be aligned in such a way that they can see each other. And these are the different wavelengths what we can have in this microwave band. And since the frequency of the microwave is greater than the high frequency what we have discussed, it would not be able to penetrate the obstacles. Fine, and it also depends upon the weather condition and frequency what it is using. So these are the some of the concepts about the microwave transmission. Any doubts in this? The lower frequency components can penetrate the obstacles or the buildings, whereas the higher frequency components would reflect. And the microwave frequencies are higher than that of the high frequency of the radio waves, and hence they cannot penetrate the obstacles. Fine. And it also depends upon the weather condition and the frequency what we are using. The next type of unguided wave is the infrared and millimeter wave. So, can you tell me where this is used, infrared waves? Any one of you? So, these infrared waves are used in your TV remotes. Yes, any remote control. Okay. So, the next one is the remote controls are used on, it is used for the TV, VCR, stereos, etc. Okay, and they are directional, cheap, and easy to build. So this is which you all are aware since you are using it, and they do not pass through the solid objects. That also we know. If someone is standing between your remote control and your TV, so you may shout at them, isn't it? So it would not be able. We are not able. The signals may not be able to pass through any of the solid objects, right? So this was about the unguided media, and one more example of an unguided media is the light transmission. Okay, so here you can see that there are two such buildings. A laser source is here, and it is trying to send some signals to at this receiving end. So this is a laser diode And at the receiving end, since the laser diode, it can beam up to a longer distance, at the receiving end we can have a photo detector. You can see that both of them should be here. Okay. Similarly, here one more laser diode can be placed and a photo detector can be placed. So this is how the transmission can be carried out. But the problem with this is that if due to the heat or due to the convection current or uh, uh, turbulence of the air, the angle, actually both of them are placed at a same line, but if it is so, it may change its angle, and at some other angle it would the direction of this light may go to some other direction, it would change. Okay. And hence it cannot receive the signals properly. Fine. So if we are having a sunny day, then it is no problem, but it also depends upon the type of air, or whether it is too hot or something like that, then the angle of this incidence of through this laser diode would change, and hence it cannot be received at the properly at the receiving end. Okay. So these are some of the examples of the uh, guided as well as unguided transmission media. And in the next class, we'll start with the switching. Right? So, any doubts in today's lecture? Hello, any doubts? So, we'll stop here and we'll continue in the next lecture. Thank you.